All right, guys, welcome to the color portion of the program. In this module, we are focusing on, well, color. And so with that, the biggest thing I really want to harp on when we're utilizing color is making sure that our colors are complementary. That is one of the biggest components and ways you're going to utilize color and make a captivating and interesting image. Now, when we utilize colors that are not complementary, it's going to be very awkward, displeasing. It's gonna feel weird to our viewer, and our viewers might not be able to pinpoint exactly why they feel unsettled, but it's going to unsettle them. Again, it's just not natural to what we are seeing with our human eyes. I mean, you look at nature, go out into the world and look at it. I mean, you will constantly see complementary colors everywhere. You go out into the forest, right, and you're seeing the greens with the browns, you're seeing the blues with the yellows. You can see this with animals, you can see this with nature, you can see this outdoors. Just go watch a bunch of film or music videos and you will see how much they're focusing on complementary colors. Red with blue, or purple with red, or blue and orange. One of the most common you'll see, that blue, teal, and orange look with trying to get that cinema look in film, right? Or oftentimes you'll see like a green tint with a slight purple tint or something like that, right? Like again, opposite sides of the color spectrum. If we're looking at the color wheel, we are using colors on opposite sides. That is how we are making complementary colors. So again, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna start adjusting the lights. I've already kind of cheated a little bit and set them to how I want, but I wanted you guys to see how exactly I'm setting this up and adjusting things. So first thing I want us to take notice of is I've gotten rid of my major big key light, the M600D with the softbox. The reason I got rid of that light is because it is a daylight balanced light. Now I could throw a gel on that. However, with such a strong light source, it can be difficult to utilize a gel because it can burn through the gel. So you have to be careful when you're using really strong light sources and buying some basic gels off of Amazon or B&H. Typically I find that I'm cutting off around 30 to 40% on that, and maybe around 60 to 65% on my Forza 200B. Anything above that, I'm starting to burn through the gels. So make sure you're being super careful when you're utilizing gels on your lights, because the LEDs, although they don't get necessarily hot, the light source itself is such a strong beam and pinpointed source that it will eventually laser through that gel if you have it all the way up on 100%. So I am using two tube lights right now, and they are the TL60 tube lights by Godox. They look like they're at very similar positions, and they are quite similar. But if you pay attention and look closely, I've got this closely resembling a Rembrandt light look. We're about probably like a 30 to 35% or a 30 to 30 degree angle here on subject. And this one right here is really hitting them pretty much a direct side light. And again, we've got some backlight on the wall for some texture, and then we've got our practical in the scene, and again for B-cam, we've got that light hidden in the back. Now with all that being said, let's go ahead and adjust these and start throwing in some color. So easy switch to mode here, and just to name off settings, Christian, if you want to come over and maybe take a look at so people can see as well. So looking at the difference here, so right now we're on hue 200 with a saturation of 77. Now the reason the saturation I brought that down is because for me, again, when I'm utilizing color, I really want it to be realistic. I want it to feel real. I don't necessarily always want it to be so artistically heavy. If I'm doing a music video, that's a different story. I might go heavy with the saturation, but especially in narrative work, I'm going more for that steel blue, that steel vapor look. And so that's why I've got the saturation turned down. But if you can see, I turn this up and it's just way more blue, way more artistic. But for me, that's great, that's cool. But again, I want to keep it a little more narrative based, if you will. So I'm gonna stick it on that 77% there. Now I'm gonna jump over here. Again, I mentioned complementary colors, guys. So there's a couple different options we could run from for this. But again, I'm going for colors and a realistic look. So let's pretend this is maybe, again, a serious interview, or let's go with the serious interview. Let's say he's coming down to break down his story. He was just in a horrific shootout, and he's here to talk about that experience, right? And so we want to create a nighttime environment, or maybe we want to create an early morning environment with sunlight bleeding through the window, right? So again, thinking about complementary colors, you want to keep this relatively realistic. I'm going to go with an orange balance, that orange and teal look, fantastic cinematic look. It can be overplayed sometimes, but again, if you make it realistic, I don't think you're going to have it overplayed. I think where it gets overplayed is everyone has been really going for that Blade Runner look, right? Like it's super saturated oranges and super saturated blues, which again is cool, but time and place. For me, I'm going to use that in music videos, but I'm not really using that for narrative-based work. So again, I'm going to go ahead and switch the mode here. And I've got color. And again, Christian, if you just want to come over and show them. So we've got a hue of 29. We're at 53% power and saturation of 81. So again, just to show you guys really quick, I can go up on the saturation. As you can see on the image, totally different look and feel, right? Like this is like super saturated. It's got the Blade Runner feel. And part of the big issue, if you pull back now, Christian, and give them another look, for me is like, look how off now this is, this key light from the backlight, right? So this is where we can start to get confusing and things can feel weird. Like our lights are not matching. And so the environment's starting to not really make sense. Realistic feel, motivated is so key and important. So again, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna turn this down. And I'm gonna go to, I think it was at 81. I'm gonna go a little bit lower this time, actually. I'm gonna go to 78%, or not 78%, excuse me, 78%, but on the saturation. I did not turn the dim down, just clarifying that for all of you. Now I'm gonna jump over to the Lico light. Again, one of the great aspects of a lot of LEDs nowadays is that you actually are able to change the temperature in Kelvin. So not only can I have this on a daylight balance, I can have this on a tungsten balance. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change this and go all the way to 2700. So now, as you can see in the image, as we come back over, we're starting to really match our key light with the back and with the practical. We've got this nice 2700 tungsten look going on with almost all of our setups and looks here. And really, if I wanted to take this even further and really just match it, I could actually switch this again. I could go into mode and I could literally just take this to 2700 Kelvin. But I often find with tube lights especially, and maybe just these more specifically with these Godoxes, that the saturation is a little bit less pooled when we're working with daylight balance adjustments in the Kelvin. So for me, again, I'd rather go into the mode and use this effect and control the saturation. For me, I feel like, again, I have more control there. I can make this as orange or as desaturated as I want it to be. Now I'm gonna come over to the back. This is one of my kind of final adjustments I'm gonna make to this scene. So as I'm adjusting this light here, I'm going to turn this into blue. So again, this look right here is going for a complementary color. So again, as we look in B-Cam, we've now got nice complementary colors, opposite sides of the spectrum, opposite sides of the image. So again, if I'm doing a music video, this is a super beneficial style. It's a really cool style. It's awesome, right? We get great complementary colors, but part of the issue you might be taking into your head, and again, if we're trying to go for like a realistic look, as you can see here with the setup, is it doesn't exactly make sense. We've got blue light coming in the back, right? For our B-Cam specifically. A-Cam, you're not necessarily worried so much, but B-Cam, we've got blue light in the back and blue light on the front side. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So again, it's about being intentional, understanding what you're trying to achieve. Now, if you're doing a music video, I think you get a lot more artistic freedom and liberation. The beauty of that is you don't necessarily have to follow the rules. The big benefit of, again, this course and understanding the art of cinematography is so once you understand the rules, you get to toss them all out the window, if that makes sense. You know, you get to learn how, you start to learn how you can break and bend the rules to your will, right? And so music videos are a great sample of that. Right now, typically, if we're utilizing and thinking about motivating light, this doesn't make sense. But we have that artistic liberation and freedom in music videos to really create our own world, our own reality. But let's say we wanted to stick to a more realistic look. So what would I do? Just like we talked about in some of these earlier modules, is I would switch this and match this. So again, we have really good motivated light. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this all the way to an orange balance here. Still turning. Something like that. And again, I'm gonna adjust the saturation. I'm gonna go to like a, let's do Just a little more. Bam. There we go. All right, so we'll go ahead and step on back into our scene here. And I'm just gonna come take a look at B-Cam myself. Again, I'm doing this all live here for you guys, and so this is as exciting and fun for me as it is for you. Great, and so we're looking pretty good. I will say though, noticing, you know, it's still a little too saturated, so I'm gonna go ahead and adjust it a little more in the back. I'm actually gonna throw it on just the 2700 Kelvin on this tube light. We'll take a look at that and we'll see how we feel. But again, guys, really the goal here when I'm setting this up is I'm just trying to get this to emulate and match as much as possible. So I'm switching back to daylight balance here. And this is now 2700 Kelvin. Let's take a look at our B-Cam here. See, this is kind of exciting. You guys, I already know, like, you guys are seeing it before I am. So like, you guys already know before me. Perfect, awesome, love it. What I would just do now is do a final check on false color. So again, guys, I mentioned it to you numerous times beforehand, the importance of false color for understanding and noticing our light. If David, you can just look a little bit more forward for me. There you go, thank you, sir. So again, as we're looking here, we've got a lot on the spectrum right here. So I understand that I can bring in a lot more light, or if I want to choose to, I can change my ISO and I can go to a higher ISO. So what I'm first gonna do is I'm going to bring the brightness up on these. I'm gonna go up by 20%. So we're now at 85 on this guy. And on this tube light, it is on 53%. Excuse me. So I'm going to jump up 20% on this as well and go to 73. All right, I'm gonna jump back to A-Cam, take another look. Awesome. So we have no peaking, we have no issues, nice flat image. And again, if I just wanted to make it ever so slightly brighter, I'll adjust that aperture and give me even like a nice bit there. So I'm at about a T25 right now. Really nice image. So here you go, guys. This is a simple and cool color setup. Again, just kind of going over everything, looking at the lights. So we've got an orange base over here, but again, it's desaturated, almost to kind of resemble a 2700 Kelvin. Now you could just go to 2700 Kelvin, daylight balance, or excuse me, 2700 Kelvin with a LED light, or using a tungsten. But again, for me, I love using these tube lights because I can make it more orange if I want it, or less. I can desaturate if I want it. A bit more control, and control is everything to me as a cinematographer. Again, then utilizing a side light for fill, and this right here, again, is blue desaturated, and what percent? Again, we are at 85% on that boy. We've got our Lico light set to 2700, our tungsten practical set to 2700. That's done automatically, bless the Edison bulb. And then we've got our Pavo 6C tube light in the back in the corner there for B-Cam, again, to create more separation and depth. And again, that is on an orange saturation, and that is at about, I don't wanna lie to you guys, let's just go check out the percentage here. And additionally, I just wanna fly this in and out too, again, just so you can see the difference. So right now we're at 35%, 2700 Kelvin. If you want to just back out as well so they can actually see this, Christian, you can just pull away so B-Cam gets a clear view. All right, and then we're flashing away. On, away, on. Right, so again, we can see how much of a difference just having that little bit of extra light really has in that B-Cam look. Not getting our subject lost in this abyss of blackness, right? We lose sight, we lose the idea of how much space we have. What does our environment actually look like? Where are we, right? Having the light in there not only gives us more separation and depth, it gives our audience more information, right? It helps them better understand the environment, where exactly we are, what are we doing here? And again, giving that wall more room to breathe, more texture, it just adds more to this experience in space. All right, guys, and that's really it for the color portion of this program. The next modules we're gonna jump into is a lot more on the technical aspects, talking about cameras, global shutter, rolling shutter, shutter speeds, frame rates, aspect ratios, all those good technical side of things. We're gonna jump into those so you can understand more about cinematography. Now that we've covered all right, now that we're done with the color portion of this program, you guys have a solid understanding and foundation with lighting. You understand cinematic lighting, the fundamentals, the theory. Now we're gonna get into cinematography. We're talking about camera department, aspect ratios, frame rates, all the goods. So without further ado, let's jump into the next module of this program.